a lot of things change when you have 50 or more employees, correct?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. What we've been talking about, and FSLA is Fair Labor
Standards Act.
Standards Act. Are there a lot of exemptions? A lot of our listeners, probably most, have fewer than 50, wouldn't you guess? You know,
Probably.
not all of them, but they still need to worry about all this stuff. You're not exempt because you have
Correct.
25 employees.
Correct. Yeah, that part doesn't matter. Now, if you get into 50 employees, we get into, okay, you need to be offering FMLA, which is unpaid. There are some
It's
states where
Family Medical
Leave Act.
Leave
Yes,
Act.
sorry.
Okay.
In HR, we are just made up of acronyms when it
Acronyms. Yeah.
all over the place. But yes, so at 50 employees, yes, you would need to look at the family medical leave being administered. You would need to look at, and then when you get to 100 employees, you would need to look at EEO1 reporting, which is where you're reporting on different demographics to the federal government and ensuring that there's certain special blurbs in place on job descriptions in your handbook regarding that. In fact, a lot of things some smaller business owners don't realize, especially if they're in a certain state or they have multiple people in other states, there's some verbiage that needs to be in place regarding, for example, California is requiring wage ranges in every job posting and some blurbs on that in job descriptions as well. And so that's something to take into account. But yes, the FLSA specifically applies to everyone. And then as you start to grow, there are other things that you would need to add on. And the state stuff throws wrenches in there as well. So
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking for most of our listeners, and I think they would agree that all these things make sense. They probably don't have a lot of time to work on some of this stuff, and probably not the know-how. Obviously, they can hire someone like you to help them as they gear up, as they get started. I want to kind of understand from your perspective, where do you see kind of that sweet spot of, hey, I'm going to outsource some of this to, no, I need to actually probably bring someone in full time. And I think the big thing that I want to people to recognize there is, I think as business owners, a lot of times we don't understand the effort behind the ask. And I know this just from like my sister starting with a company when they had just a handful of employees, and now they're, over 100 and plus. And there's just so much work involved. And they think, oh, just HR, you're just hiring and firing people and,
right.
get them set up on their account. But there's so much more, just like you've mentioned, that goes into it. So
Absolutely.
with all that effort that goes into this task, when is it proper to outsource versus the benefits of having that full-time person and still even getting some strategy outsourced on top of that?
Yeah, I honestly think it's important to outsource at least just, for example, the trainings, and like I said, it's like I'll offer certain trainings that can be recorded and just disseminated and updated
Yeah.
every so often, as well as, just reviewing the policies that you have, which is something that I do often as well. It's just reviewing what you have, making suggestions. So there can be just some light touch from HR. I also am on call as things are needed because, of course, sometimes things come up, right? I think around, I would say, honestly, when you get to about 20, 30 employees, where you really probably should think about having full-time HR or amp up the amount of hours that you're working with your consultant. Because again, more things tend to come up and you just, there's just a little bit more that goes into having that many employees. Of course, you can delegate to managers to do all of those items, but I think you're right. A lot of people forget about all the facets of HR. That it really is vast, and that's why I love my job. There's so much variety, right? But you got to think about it like, would you rather have, when you have 20 or 30 employees and you have managers that are managing them, wouldn't you rather they spend more time on operations than this other HR stuff? It wouldn't hurt to have, an HR administrator, an HR manager, HR specialist, even that may not be paid as much, let's say, but are still on top of some of those items that can take some of that back from the managers so they can focus on their operations.